If you're a therapist who's been struggling to pick the right name for your private practice, you landed on the right video. So often I see therapists make the same mistakes when it comes to naming a practice, and today's video is going to equip you with some tips and tools to pick the right name the first time. Welcome back, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kelly Stevens. I'm the founder of Private Practice Pro, and I teach therapists how to build successful private practices. I'm so excited you're here, and I hope you subscribe to my channel. But without further ado, let's get into why it is so important to pick the right name for your private practice the first time. So often when I'm helping students in my courses pick the right name for their therapy practice, I'll see people kind of throw out vague terms, right? Evolve, or Santa Barbara Counseling, or Helpers Help Helpers, or all these different names, right? Or maybe they'll go on GoDaddy or Google Domains and try to pick a domain before they even kind of sit down and think, what would be a good business name for the clients that I am planning to see? Now, picking the right name the first time is really important for a few reasons. One, from the moment you start your private practice website, you are going to start working on your search engine optimization. Now, when I first started my private practice, I named my practice something that might not surprise you, and I named it Kelly Stevens Therapy. Really common thing that therapists do, and even though there's nothing wrong with using your name as a business name, what happened is I grew and evolved and eventually hired people who didn't necessarily want to be working under my name, right? Because it made the brand seem like it was all about me, and I ended up having to change that name. I had spent years working on my search engine optimization for my company. I had built a brand around that name, and at the point in time that I had to rebrand, I had to start all of that from the beginning. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a second right now while watching this video and think about where you envision yourself throughout your career. If you think, I am planning on being in solo private practice, just me, one therapist in my office for the rest of my life, then there's nothing wrong with picking your name as your business name. That being said, many of the therapists I work with say, you know what, one day I might want to open an online course. I might want to hire an associate. I might want to expand to a group practice. I might want to create digital workbooks. Many of us therapists, especially nowadays, have aspirations and dreams of creating bigger businesses. If this is the case for you, I wouldn't recommend using your personal name as your business name. So that gets us into this question of what are other names that you could pick? The way I see it, there are really 4 types of names that therapists tend to pick when deciding on a business name. The first one is using your own name. Kelly Stevens Therapy, Amanda Smith Therapy, something like that. The second type is picking a location-based name. So that might be Boston Counseling Group. That might be Santa Barbara Psychological Association, something like that. The third type of name that I see people pick is based on their orientation or their therapeutic style. Maybe they'll say something like the Psychoanalytic Institute or the Center for Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. The last type of name I see people use is kind of an abstract term or something that feels like it's not super specific. Sometimes people will pick a name that's kind of generic that could mean a lot of different things. So this is where you get counseling practices named like Evolve or Hope or Harmony or Waves or whatever it is people come up with. Now, you might think that I'm going to tell you that there's one right way to do it. There isn't. If you think that you might be located in the city that you are practicing in for the rest of your life, then it might be a good idea to name your practice after the city you're in. Santa Barbara Psychological Association, for example. Sometimes naming your practice after the city that you're in gives you some credibility. It makes people feel like you are super local, especially in the age of telehealth. You know, it can make people feel grounded knowing that you are in the city they're in. However, we go back to that question of if you plan on maybe one day moving your office to a different city or even just a different part of town, you might run into some problems, especially with your search engine optimization, if all of a sudden maybe you open a satellite office in a neighboring city and you want people to be able to search that neighboring city for therapists, and all of a sudden your name is based on your individual city. The same thing kind of goes for when you pick a counseling practice name based on your theoretical orientation. Your theoretical orientation might change throughout your life. If you are somebody who really wants to open a psychoanalytic institute or a center for cognitive behavioral therapy, then by all means do it. But if you think that there's a possibility that you might later change that name, then I might suggest picking something more generic. This is where we get into those abstract terms. I really like abstract terms for private practice names. The reason for that is because they are easy to adapt. And more than likely throughout your career, you are going to adapt your business. You might have online workshops, you might have associates, you might open an online course. And having a practice name that can grow with you in the long term is a really good thing. Now, if you're going to pick an abstract term, you might be asking yourself, like, Kelly, how am I going to figure that out? What I usually do is a really simple trick. I don't even know if it's a trick, but I typically will start just writing notes in my phone. And this is where I think it's good to take a week or two and really brainstorm your name. Go to lunch with a friend, go to meet with other therapists, start asking them, what do you think would be a good name for a practice? You might start to notice some themes or trends that you really like or words that you really like, and I would write them all down in your phone. Once you have a list of names that you really like, there's a few things that you need to think about. The first thing you need to think about is whether or not you might eventually open a larger digital brand. Are you thinking that one day you might expand your counseling practice to include online resources or workshops, right? Similar to this. If that's you, I am going to link to another video right here, which is with my trademark attorney who I love, and she talks about the benefits of picking a business name that works with a trademark or getting a name trademarked. This is really important if you are going to expand to a much larger digital brand. If you're not, if you're gonna stay local or you're gonna even just stay in the state that you're licensed in, you don't need to trademark. But if you think one day you are gonna open some online courses or workshops, from the very beginning, I would go ahead and do it and watch that video. If you are not going to do that, there are still some steps you need to take. One is you need to see if the domain name for the business name you are picking is available. And when I say the domain name, I really mean a .com domain name. I don't mean .net or .co. Pick a .com, that's what everyone uses. Let's go with that. So you need to check if the domain name is available. I personally like using GoDaddy. It's the easiest one. I would check there. I'll link it below. The other thing you need to do is think about whether or not you're going to use social media to market your practice. And if you are, you might choose to reserve the handles for those on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever platforms you might use one day. So much of your business name is going to be determined by the availability of those names online. The other thing you need to do is you need to register your business with your city. I go into a lot more detail on this in my private practice roadmap course and specifically how to get a business license. But for now, I just want you to know that even if you pick a business name and it isn't your official business name, you can use something called the DBA, doing business as, and you can do business as that name that you pick while your official kind of corporate name is something else. Again, we go over this more in the roadmap, but know that that's also an important step. The key to picking a good name is picking a name that can grow with you in the long term of having your private practice. There's so many exciting things to come with building a private practice. I'm here every step of the way. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.